Hello, everyone in podcast land. Welcome to the inaugural broadcast of Selective Memories with Nick and Jay. I'm your host, Uncle Nick, and with me as always is Jay, the Mon Valley man with the Norland plan. How you doing tonight, Jay?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself, Nick?
Doing fine, thank you. This has been a culmination of a dream that has some time in the making and getting over some hurdles. But quick backstory, I met Jay the Magic Man over here. Our daughters are in Stage Right Theater Company in Greensburg together. Took a little while because dads don't usually talk when their kids are in any type of practice or school together. We basically are pick up and drop off. But once I met the Magic Man here, everything kind of clicked, and we've been talking about this. This is something I think we've hit a niche here. We think there's a lot of people like us. We are the tail end of the Generation X, pre-millennial dads out there. Grew up 80s, early 90s. Saw the best of hair metal rolled into grunge to alternative. And then the birth of the boy bands when we realized that we were ready to move on. So I'm going to hand it over to my man Jay right now and ask you, Jay, how do you feel about this show? What do you think we're going to accomplish here?
Well, just a little backstory on myself first for those of you who don't know me, seeing me for the first time or meet me for the first time. I'm a 40-something husband, father of two girls, ages 8 and 10. Yes, I said daughters, so as they get older, please keep me in your prayers as they get more and more hormonal and my hair gets more and more gray. I'm a former radio personality, my early college career at 90.1 WIUP for any longtime fans out there. Nice to be back with you. Nick and I share this same quality, or we have a unique ability to watch something, hear something, especially from back in our youth, back in, like Nick said, in the 80s, the 90s. We see these things, we hear these things, we retain them. We repeat them later on just at random points whenever the memory strikes us during random conversations. This, along with our inability to remember things that maybe our spouses, our kids, our parents tell us each morning, where somebody has to go and when, what's going to be for dinner tonight, things like that. We can't remember those things, but the really important things, nostalgia from back in the 80s and 90s, we retain very well. So I think Nick and I look forward to doing this show together. That's going to be kind of what we discuss. But yeah, that's a little bit of background on me. I'll throw it back to Nick for some more details there.
Sure. Well, a little background about myself. Similar background. I went to Duquesne University and have a background in broadcasting, which, like many of our generation, do not use that at all in my professional career. But this was something that kind of sparked when Jay and I were talking about something we could do, because I go back to my days. It was WDSR 97.7 high atop Duquesne Bluff. Was the 4 to 6 afternoon drive slot had when I was at Duquesne. So I have some really good memories there. The good memories of our youth. And I think when I told my wife, Dana, I also have a girl and a boy. My daughter, Isabella, is 9, and my son, Vincent, is 18 months. So little gap in between there. So Isabella's taking off, and Vincent's just starting. But when I mentioned to Dana about doing this, she immediately said, well, yes, because absolutely what Jay just said. We retain very little of the day-to-day. The short term is almost non-existent, but the long term is quite scary, because as Ferris Bueller said, I wanted a car, I got a computer. So that was that for being born under a bad sign. I wanted a Power Wheels. I got a basement with a 27-inch Zenith console, wood cabinet, which had a TCI cable box on it, and I believe, I want to say it was an RCA VHS player. So that basically says my backstory. So that basement and those were my friends, along with Nintendo, Super Nintendo. And what you'll see a lot of our generation is, even though we had all that, surprisingly, we were still outside and still did other things as well. But this pop culture that we retained, these movie quotes surely set the stage for us. And I think you're going to see that in what we talk about. That selective memory is pretty true, because you can go off into a long synopsis which covers so many grounds when you could go from one movie to another and have a full conversation of none of your original thought, but every movie quote kind of takes you down that path. So we have that. There's a mix of sports. There's a mix of our what grinds our gears for those who were Family Guy fans. So you're gonna see a lot of that. I think it's gonna be pretty enjoyable. We have Jay will go over eventually here our social media platform, because he's the social media guru. He's got us on more things than I even know exist out there. But we're hopefully going to be able to field some comments, gain some followers, see what you want to talk about, see what your thoughts are, and kind of bounce back and forth and cover some topics there. So first topic, if it's okay, Jay, if you want to get into it. You ready? You ready to roll?
I'm absolutely ready. Did you want me? I can do a quick mention of these social media platforms you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Again, we're just in our infancy, so audience, please bear with us. But feel free to email us at dramadads@gmail.com. That's all one word and pluralized. dramadads@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at Selective Memories. Again, no spaces or anything like that, but at Selective Memories on Facebook, on Twitter, at Drama Dads, and hopefully, with the grace of God, this episode will be on YouTube channel Selective Memories as well. So we look forward to interacting with our audience, hearing some feedback from you folks, and trying to make the show as enjoyable as we can for you, as it is for us to do. So, yeah, go ahead, Nick, with whatever topic we're going to start with. We're ready to go.
Sure, sounds good. I do have to warn the audience, growing up in an Italian household, it's difficult to speak with, not moving your hands. So if you see, these come up, or some flash of hands in the background, it's very difficult to not talk with keeping them down, but I'll do the best that I can. I've been told how loud I am, and I'd like to thank my dad for those genes that he instilled in me, because it's not, as my mother would say, it's when I'm not talking to you is when I'm really mad at you. The volume level did not dictate my household. The volume just went higher and higher and higher as the argument ensued. But when it was silent, then you knew there was a real problem. So I think first topic, we're starting today, beginning of November. This is November. Check me if I'm wrong. We're the 9th today. Jay, am I right? November 9th. This past week, Sean Connery, legend, passed away, and actually today, was this today or yesterday? Alec Trebek passed away as well.
I think it was yesterday. Yesterday. Yeah.
So we've lost some heavy hitters, both in different genres, but some heavy hitters. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Sir Sean Connery. I think what Jay and I see from our generation, of course, I'm a James Bond's fan, so I've seen those James Bond. But growing up in the Sean Connery movies that we've had, you see The Rock, some classics like that. So, but a pretty esteemed actor. Many accolades along the way, knighted. So seeing a legend like that pass away, and that voice is a major loss, especially the actors of that generation, as we lose them. There's a small, kind of a not mentioned a lot movie, Family Business, which is Dustin Hoffman, Matthew Broderick, and Sean Connery. And Sean Connery and Dustin Hoffman are kind of on the outskirts of mafia, But Matthew Broderick, this is his post Ferris Bueller when he was trying to be like a serious actor, but off the beaten path, but definitely worth a watch because that's probably one of my favorite Sean Connery ones. I'm going to pass it over to Jay. Best Sean Connery movie that you're a fan of and why?
Okay, and I'm gonna apologize. I did come prepared with some notes, but I don't have just one. I have
Let me hear it.
I have three different ones that I really love, and I'll give you the reasons why I like each of them, and I'll give you my favorite Sean Connery quote in the very best Sean Connery voice I can do from each one of these movies.
Thank you.
Yeah, this might be horrible. I might butcher the voice, and my apologies. R.I.P. Sean, Sir Sean. Me no disrespect, but from a historical standpoint, the best film, Sean Connery film that I've seen, would have to be The Untouchables. Kick-ass cast.
Mm-hmm.
Al Capone. I always like a good gangster movie. All of that thing. The quote. There's very many in there, but I always like when when Malone is getting ready to pass on, he does in this like grunting voice. What are you prepared to do?
As he's gasping for air.
Oh yeah. He's riddled with spoiler alert if you haven't seen Untouchables. I apologize. Number two, because I enjoy all of the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan series when it comes to books, TV shows, movies. The Hunt for Red October, and anytime I watch it, it's at least a solid week of in my head. I can just hear him go, "One ping, please."
Against our old adversary. Terrible impression.
And last but certainly not least, a quintessential '90s suspense / thriller type movie, and it's probably pretty underrated. But Just Cause. With Lawrence Fishburne, my Blair Underwood, and Sir Sean Connery, Ed Harris as well. My favorite quote comes from Ed Harris is a psycho that's already in jail, and he's supposed to be given some advice to, or some evidence, I guess, to Sean Connery, and he tells him go check out his parents, talk to them. Meanwhile, Ed Harris killed his parents a long time ago, so he wants to see that reaction from Sean Connery. He asks him, "How'd my parents look? How they smell?" And Sean Connery does not give him the satisfaction. And he says, "They said they forgive you, and they'll keep you in their prayers." And he just flips out. So that for many different reasons. I mean, I like a ton of Sean Connery movies. Those three stand out to me.
Definitely solid list there. Hunt for Red October can't. That started for myself getting all of my intellect from movies and not from the books that they're based on. I mean that starts it all right there. If you don't have the Hunt for Red October, I don't know if you have the rest of those novels put into movies. A young Alec Baldwin. I mean, how can you solid cast all around? But as I'm thinking, I mean, his legendary, what you put him in is that James Bond role. He sets the gold standard for James. I mean, you go through the years with him starting it in the 60s. You move through the change in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, through today. So to have that lineage, is he the best? I think you kind of bounce this over in your head. If he didn't start it, would he be known as the best? If he came in second, let's say, or was he, or Timothy Dalton was first, would he be the standard? I don't think so, because as fine as the man that Timothy Dalton is, and his two James Bond films, The Living Daylights and License to Kill, they do not stand up to where Sean Connery has it in Goldfinger and the like. So I would say he is the best James Bond. He put his stamp on pop culture, on the genre of the spy movie. You don't have an Austin Powers making fun of a spy movie unless you have Sean Connery doing it originally. So all the best to Sean as you move on to the to the next page and to the man up above. I'm sure you're looking down, shaking your head on probably some of Hollywood, but solid man. And we lost today. I mean, lost this week. And since Jay and I were raised on television, losing Alec Trebek, I mean, Jeopardy, I don't know how you can replace, and I'm not even an avid, you can talk to my parents in that generation watching Jeopardy like every night. I don't know how you can replace him on that stage. I know he's not the original, but that span of 80s through now 2020, that's pretty long lasting to host something like that. So
Now, I'm far from a historical expert or anything like that. You said he wasn't the original. I didn't know he wasn't the original.
correct. So Jeopardy and some game shows go through. I know I'm going to be wrong, and when my dad listens to this, he'll be shaking his head because the original host of Jeopardy, you have to go back to those legendary names like Jack Parr, who was the first host of The Tonight Show, and those Jeopardy goes back several years, like before its resurgence, like 70s and 80s back through. So, and I believe because that Jeopardy was a Merv Griffin show, and Merv Griffin did all the big time shows. Merv Griffin was had his own show. He was, I believe, The Joker's Wild. Merv Griffin was. If you look at Merv Griffin Enterprises, I'm sorry, I didn't research that enough because this came so quickly with him passing away. But he is pretty much like some of your classic game shows of yesterday. Those were Merv Griffin shows. So I don't believe he hosted it, but there was definitely an original host of Jeopardy. So, but I think Alex sets the standard though.
I apologize for putting you on the spot like that. It just popped in there when we were talking about it.
No, I mean more Jack Daniels would help. So maybe that'll come back. I like the blue cup there. That's solid.
This is very it's very Uncle Si on Duck Dynasty. I mean, I think he carries around his iced tea in this exact same type cup.
Yes.
So
let's move on. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of pop culture from our youth. Yeah, it's going to bring up topics, and we can go down the rabbit hole with those. I'm going to set what I think is going to be kind of our flashback segment. So I'm going to put Jay on the spot here. So I'm going to put this out to you. So you're a kid. It's the 80s, early 90s. You're home from school. You could be homesick. This could be a snow day. This could be a day off. I was a Catholic schooler, so there were the holy days we had off there. But so you're home. What are you watching on TV? What are you going with, Jay?
Okay, so I mean, probably I'm saying I'm probably wake up around 7-8 o'clock in the morning, give or take. When I get up, I don't remember anything specifically I watched right away. If I know me, and I know 30 years ago me, I'd be watching some kind of cartoon first to lighten the mood, get my day started. Okay, 9 o'clock. My parents always watch this show, so in turn, I end up always watching this show, Regis and Kathy Lee at 9 o'clock. Yes.
Good morning.
And then I go from there, and then for the next hour, when Kathy Lee and Regis were over at 10, a little bit of channel surfing because there wasn't really anything specific I remember watching from 10 to 11. But 11 o'clock, you can set your watch to it. I always watch The Price is Right. When they spin the wheel, the showcase there.
Showcase showdown, yeah.
I would run over to my kitchen. I go stand in front of my oven, and I would pretend like I was spinning some kind of wheel. And I always make the little beep, 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 beep noise while I'm doing it. Probably really annoying for a parent to hear a kid do that over and over again. But I just love The Price is Right. I still do. Plinko, #1 game of all time on Price is Right.
You can now buy, I believe there is a Plinko game out for this Christmas, because I was even considering getting it for my parents. But I think you can get and drop your own chips. So just saying, it's out there. Check Amazon and your favorite retailers. Your Hills, Ames, Trader Horn, what have you. I'm sure they have it for the Christmas season.
And just for research purposes, Nick, if you or if any member of our audience knows somebody who enjoys watching The Price is Right, either now or back then, ask them what their favorite game is on The Price is Right. I guarantee you at least 85% will say Plinko.
Absolutely. The only thing that comes in second, just by nostalgia, is the mountain climber who yodels as he's going up. So you have to hit the price before he falls off. But Plinko's number one. When they would spin that door around and said, "You're playing Plinko," you just went nuts. In fact, my one grandma, my mom's mother, when we would play Connect Four, she called it Plinko because we always went. So she would say, "Let's play Plinko," and we'd play Connect Four. You know? So not to cut you off. So you hit the Price is Right.
No.
Where are you after that?
Yeah, you're fine. So after Price is Right, of course it's noon, it's lunchtime. So probably the news or something like that is on at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. And then after lunch, I never got into soaps back then or even now. I mean, I watch, I guess, adult type soaps like This Is Us and things like that. Mm-hmm. But like afternoon soap operas, I never got into them. So the afternoon, the rest of the day, I probably either played like something on Nintendo or something on Sega Genesis and just cruise me right into dinner mode. Nice. How about yourself? How did you spend your days home as a kid without school?
Very similar. Had the once again, we were a Zenith household, so we had a Zenith in the basement, Zenith in the family room, and then a Zenith up in my parents' room. So we were creatures of television. As soon as cable came into my neighborhood, my parents were one of the first on the block to get the cord plugged into the house. So we had a cable box right away. But waking up, had the TV in front of me, always cartoons. Real Ghostbusters, G.I. Joe, Transformers. You would have some, like I remember Heathcliff would be on. I think that Dennis the Menace had a cartoon. Definitely a lot of cartoons going on. Some fluctuate because it would change as a new cartoon came in and one came out. But that always started off the morning, and then game shows, right into game shows. And they were either new or rerunned, but $25,000 Pyramid, Press Your Luck, mm-hmm. Classic Concentration. I'm not sure if you remember that one.
Oh,
where you open up the doors. That's classic. Hollywood Squares. Then on cable, you had Supermarket Sweep, Shop Till You Drop. Those were always ones I'd watch with my mother. Always The Price is Right. 11 o'clock, The Price is Right. The noon news would come on. And then if I was at home, it was pretty much up for grabs because I could go to a TV, watch more reruns, WKRP in Cincinnati, Gilligan's Island, whatever was running on rerun, I would watch. But if I was with my grandmother, my dad's mother, when the hourglass came on the television and like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. You didn't speak for the next hour. The house could be on fire. They could be coming through the front door, with armed military. You did not move when Days of Our Lives was on. So, and then, like I said, if I was at home, I had my run of a TV to usually watch. But if my grandmother was watching me, then soaps, ruled the roost. So you went from Days of Our Lives, The Young and the Restless, Guiding Light. There were some Bold and Beautiful. There were some really solid. And for whatever reason, the Golden Girls used to rerun in the afternoon. So that I would watch in the afternoon. Reruns took me pretty much through until the after school hour. And then there were some solid cartoons there. Tailspin, Animaniacs, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, DuckTales. Your after school. If I got to, my brother and sister were 8 and 9 years older. So if they got the remote first, then it was Yo MTV Raps came on right as we were getting off the bus. So you had some solid Run DMC, MC Hammer. There was some good times were had on Yo MTV Raps, but that carried you right through till dinner. And for whatever reason, when I want to say was either Nickelodeon when it was switching over to Nick at Night or USA, one of those would show the old Batman 1966 serial.
Oh, yeah.
I loved watching those. And then I would watch, they'd have like 2 episodes back, and I watched them religiously, even though 30 years, past its date. So that was pretty much my, home time. So that's how my day was spent. You mentioned in there, Jay, I'm going to bounce to a new topic. You mentioned in there Nintendo, Sega Genesis, best video game system of our youth and best game. Putting you on the spot. Go ahead. Give it to me.
I have it then and now because
Okay,
I still play video games now as a 40-year-old. No judgment,
good for
everybody.
you. Good for
Uh,
you.
but back then, I mean, for me, you couldn't go wrong with the original Nintendo. Um, between Super Mario Brothers 3, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Super Tecmo Bowl, and ironically, I made these show notes about a few days ago. Jeopardy is all on my list as one of my favorite games to play. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
As far as now, I mean, I have a PS4, so Batman, Arkham Knight. 'Cause I always like anything Batman. Any kind of WWE wrestling game, any version of Madden football or NHL hockey, I'm in. Those are my two favorite systems and my favorite games within those systems. How about yourself?
Solid list. Now, as Christmases go, when I was a small, little babe, my dad's claim to fame was he has like a couple gifts over the years that he found that my mother didn't handle and that Santa didn't handle. So my dad has a short list, but he tells you about them every Christmas. He found when Atari was popular and you couldn't get him on the shelf, he was in Johnstown making a sales call, and he found it at a toy store in Johnstown and surprised the whole family with an Atari. So that I was real small. I do remember playing with my brother. Then my brother got the first Nintendo. And for that, for me, was Major League Baseball,
Oh
Mike
yeah,
Tyson's Punch-Out. Not had to have Mike Tyson on it. Once he got stripped of his Punch-Out status, it lost its luster. Double Dribble, Blades of Steel, Disney Adventures was a great game, and it was impossible to beat. For whatever reason, you could not beat Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion. If anyone did, you're a legend and a man among kids, because I don't know anyone that could beat that game. So those were solid there. My system, though, was the Christmas I got Super Nintendo. And, of course, came with the adapter to hook up to your old television, because behind the television, there was the two screws, then the coax cable, then the splitter for your cable box, VHS,
yeah.
gaming system. You had to switch over, for what you were playing. So there were 17 cables all going into that, and it had to be on channel 3. If it wasn't on channel 3, you weren't playing it. So
Huge fire hazard.
Oh, exactly. I mean, just like out of A Christmas Story, we had like 16 plugs going into one outlet with 4 adapters and a surge protector with the light that didn't blink anymore. It was dead. But my favorite game, I was a Nintendo kid, so I didn't have Sega, even though I played it. But Super Nintendo, Super Mario World, the first Madden I believe I had was Madden 94, and that's when it was licensed with both the NFL and players. So that was a huge one of mine. NHLPA 93 hockey.
Oh.
I throw that out there because the Penguins were just coming off the 92 Cup when they built that game, and they were ridiculous. Like of 100, they gave them a 99. You could not. When you would play with friends, they'd be like, "You can't be the Penguins." We just wouldn't allow each other to be the Penguins because the line of Lemieux, Yager, and Kevin Stevens was unstoppable. And for our generation, we'll be the only ones that know if you needed a goal, you either wrapped around the goal,
yes.
went around the right, came back around the left, and the computer would swing over to the left. You'd have a side shot there. Or if you deked in front of the goal, you'd usually fake them out. But
I mean, I still try to use that move now in today's gaming systems. Obviously, they've upgraded
they
all of
figured
those,
it out.
and it never works. But old habits die hard. I still try to do wraparound. I deke like crazy. Like, why can't you score?
I can remember playing Double Dribble on Nintendo with my brother, and there was a spot in the game that was like almost at half court that you could hit a 3, and if you hit that spot on the game, you just drilled through, and he had it down cold, and you couldn't stop it. It just drilled, and I would yell and I'd scream at him like, "You can't keep hitting that 3-pointer," but he would just drain him over top of me all day long. And then Blades of Steel, that was the first game that you could have a fight in. So I mean, how classic was that? But a lot of good memories. My video games ended with the original Wii. I still have it hooked up in Isabella's room, but have not really advanced video games besides what's on my phone now. So unfortunately, I see these amazing games where of my youth through college, I had the Madden and then the college football, the NCAA college football almost every year they came out. That was my money was always saved up for those. And then I would just play them until, till your eyes almost were bloody. Just,
Now, all these memories of the things we enjoyed. Do you remember any? You remember like maybe like the worst video game you've ever played? Because I definitely have one in mind.
so the worst video game, I'm trying to think. It's interesting that you mentioned the Untouchables because I vaguely remember playing the Untouchables on Nintendo, and it was a terrible game. Dick Tracy was very bad. The Rocketeer, they gave him a game. Awful, awful. Ghostbusters 2, which broke my heart because I lived and died with the Ghostbusters, so I was so pumped when that game came out. I was going to every supermarket for weeks till I could rent it, and I brought it home, and it was ridiculously hard to play, and you couldn't even get past the first level. And one that wasn't bad, but it was so difficult that you stopped playing. I think my all-time was Back to the Future. That picture, I couldn't even get off the skateboard. I never saw the DeLorean. It was just, basically you could chuck the cartridge off the wall because you couldn't get past it. Like now, games you could play games for the rest of your life. They don't end. But those games, they were hard and you could not get past it. I will say before I kick it over to you, I could land on Top Gun. I don't know why, but I had the touch. I always could land, but I couldn't refuel. So I got you past the first level, but once you needed to refuel, then I couldn't do it.
I mean, I could probably count on my hands, on my one hand, how many games I may have actually beaten in my lifetime. Like I don't beat video games. I enjoy playing them. Super Mario, any of the Super Marios, I never actually beat them. And I know that's pretty elementary for a video gamer that's been playing for 20, 30 years, but I just never have. But you talked about Atari, and I always felt this was the worst video game of all time. And then I saw, I saw that there are some publications out there who are also voted this game as the worst video game of all time. If you ever played E.T. for Atari, absolute garbage. Like you can't do anything in it.
What a great
you fall in a pit and you can't get out. That's it.
What a great documentary on Netflix they had where they unearthed in I don't know if I'm saying, I believe it's Alamogordo, Mexico, but there is a landfill in New Mexico where they buried all these ET cartridges, and it was always a myth. And it was within the last couple of years they did a documentary, and once again, super fans, super nerds, you may want to call them, they funded this drilling exhibition into this landfill pit, and they pulled it out and realized that there are the Atari cartridges, the ET cartridges, which is a shame because the guy apparently who designed it was like this legend at Atari, and he was given something ridiculous like 4 months for the Christmas season to make ET. And like Spielberg signed off on it. It was, their Christmas gift to the world. This giant movie was going to have a video game. Now, I mean, it's just basically understood a pop culture movie is probably going to have a video game with it, especially if it's something with young kids. But then was not really done. So it's really a shame because this guy's like whole career was then based on making E.T., which is the worst video game of all time.
It's incredibly terrible. If anybody still has an Atari out there, I believe I do. Maybe over at my parents' house, or maybe my brother has it. All of our games still work. They built those things to last. But if you have one and you never played Atari or ET for Atari before, give it a try, but don't expect to make any kind of progress on it.
What was your favorite Atari game? If I can.
Okay, this is going to be tough because there was like a usual rotation I would play like all the time. I'd play for a little bit, I'd switch to another one. I remember boxing being one of them with the two guys going like this.
Was that when you created the boxer and then they boxed? Or
no.
When you were? Oh no, just the black versus white box.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, gotcha.
Superman. I always liked playing Superman.
Good
flying
game.
into the little phone booth, changing into regular clothes, walking around. Kaboom. And yes. And maybe some pole position if the mood struck me right.
If anyone from Westmoreland County remembers Sideshow Pizza, may it rest in peace, in Greensburg, the pole position machine is just a quintessential arcade game because It was the first game with a wheel. I'm probably wrong. I'm sure there's older ones made, but that pole position, giant compressed wood pole position machine, I played it every time I was at Sideshow Pizza. That's a classic. It's tough because there's so many legends now, like Pac-Man, but the Pac-Man we had was not made by, is it Namco, or the real famous one that made the arcade version. There were like several that made Pac-Mans for Atari because they didn't license it correctly. So I remember the Pac-Man we had was the same game, but it didn't look like the perfect Pac-Man. He kind of almost looked like a little triangle. He didn't have that nice circle to him. It was like blue instead of yellow. So depends on the pack. I think our Pac-Man was not a licensed one. Who knows? But probably my favorite. My brother always played Pele soccer because he was a soccer player, which was 4 squares with square legs and a square ball, and you would move them up and down the field. So I used to watch him play that. I love Ghostbusters on there. That was a classic. I think Gangster's Alley was one. Atlantis was good. And even though people love Pac-Man, I was a Shark Attack fan. And that had the same principle. You were a undersea diver going through the maze, but then every so many seconds, a shark would come across screen and it would freeze you and it would munch. And if you were in that path, he would munch, and then that's what killed you off. So some good classic memories. The artwork on those covers were like fantastic, and then you played the game.
Like half a bit or whatever they're called. Yeah, a bit.
Yeah, the cover work was done by like Picasso himself, and then the games were so. I remember playing baseball, volleyball, anything that had more than one player. They moved like in synchronous with each other. So if you were playing basketball, all the guys like moved up the court together and moved back up the court. And really, then when Nintendo came, I mean, what groundbreaking that you had things that moved, by themselves. But I guess my tenure of games, once I lost left to right going through a game, that's probably when I started to lose my video game edge, because I need an algebraic equation. I need to move this way and I win. If I have to go back or a 360 motion, that's not where I am. Even though I almost did fail out of college when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out.
I mean, who didn't? We found, I think we have Grand Theft Auto Vice City upstairs for like the PlayStation 3 that still works.
And that's that was like the like Scarface kind of.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, we could probably spend 15 shows talking about video games. You know what I mean? And that's just me.
I mean, I yield to the experts. I know when I'm not, I sit back and let the experts take over. But I think we've definitely shown in this first broadcast, I mean, the depth of what we feel is good quality thought and conversation. Our wives, however, look at us and move on and just realize that this may not be the best use of time, but I know our listeners out there understand what we're talking about. So,
I mean, we're basically like a version of 7 Steps to Kevin Bacon, except it's not Kevin Bacon we get to pretty much anything you can think of that falls under TV, movies, music, sports, video games, whatever. Somebody just has to say one little trigger word, and I have to explain to him, okay, something's really funny right now. You're not going to understand it, but you telling me this makes me think of this movie, which makes me think of this, which makes me think of this. And it's just weird how our minds work very similarly, that hopefully more people will be able to understand.
Yes, and the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, that was a glorious like 2 years of pop culture when that was popular, because my go-to, all I needed to do was get to The Godfather, which got Robert Duvall with Tom Cruise and Days of Thunder. So then it moved me into, then you had a Few Good Men, then brought you over into The Godfather, and you could connect really anyone through just those 2 movies. I was all over it. So, but so I think I think this is what you're going to see a lot from us. Hopefully, we get some some feedback out there, what you want to talk about, what's been picking your brain for all these years, conversations that you may not be able to have with your spouse because they would rather talk about more important things like your child's education or, you know, what we're doing for Christmas. But really, I mean, these are hot-blooded issues here. They rattle the soul and the mind, so they need to be spoken about.
Yeah, because if you don't have a venue to get this information out, then it just stays in there. What good is that? It's sharing is caring.
Exactly. I think there's a you know I think Nietzsche, you know, said it best when, you know, like, you know, an unused mind is, you know, a terrible thing to waste. I mean, all this knowledge up there, it needs to come out. It needs to the generation, what are they now? Generation Z, whatever generation they're called now. I mean, they need to learn these things. This is their history, you know, and it needs to come from us. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Jay, if you want to go over before we wrap up here, once again, just where you can find us, and like Jay had mentioned, definitely bear with us because everything is still in its infancy. But Jay, if you wouldn't mind going over where the good folks can find us at.
Absolutely. Feel free to email us at dramadads@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at Selective Memories, as well as on Twitter at Drama Dads. And we say that because both of our kids are in the same drama classes and have been for a very long time. They take the drama they learn in class and definitely bring it home. So all we see all day long is drama, drama, drama. So yeah, Drama Dads is the perfect name for all of our sites here. So yeah, email us at dramadads@gmail.com, Facebook at Selective Memories, and Twitter at Drama Dads. We look forward to hearing from you. Hopefully you liked what you heard, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Well, hey Jay, pleasure as always. I'm looking forward to the future ahead. And for those out there listening, just remember that you can handle the truth. You can handle Selective Memories with Nick and Jay. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you very much.